Hey guys, it's JP, and this time we are going to look at simple and practical ways to work the calf muscles to help improve your running. For those who don't know, I will be going over great exercises that work key muscle groups for runners that can easily be incorporated at home. I figured this would be relevant considering that there can be limited access to gym equipment at this time. During this video, we'll be going over ways to work one of the muscles involved in the calf muscle complex, which is the gastrocnemius. This is a key muscle to work on as it contributes to absorb forces in the early phase of running and then push against the ground to propel the body forward. The more force these muscles can produce, the farther you will go with each step, which ultimately results in increased speed. This area, also known as the ankle plantar flexors, is very crucial to work on, especially as one gets older, since decline in power most notably occurs here. Now, let's go over some exercises that are simple and practical that you can try, and why I tend to incorporate them. The first exercise we will go over is heel raises. This is a staple exercise seen in many training programs that aim to target this area. One big reason I like them is because they are simple. All you really need to do here is raise the heels up and down. However, I do add some details to this to really get the most out of this exercise. One cue I use is to keep the knees straight. This prevents a common compensation of using more of the quadriceps by letting the knees bend and straighten as you perform the heel raise. A second thing I look out for is curling from the toes. When doing a heel raise, many people do so from curling from the four outer toes. This can be a compensatory strategy for limited strength from the calf muscles. To prevent this, I cue people to drive down from the ball of the foot or the big toe. This really engages the calf muscles and works a motion that is more running specific. Another detail is following a certain tempo. I typically tell the athlete to perform the heel raises in 2-second intervals. I find that without this cue, some people lift the heels up, then just let them drop without control. It is especially important to control the descent of the heels as this works this muscle eccentrically. These muscles are typically worked in this manner most of the time during the running cycle, so it is important to work them this way. Also, there are plenty of ways to modify this exercise to challenge yourself. One obvious way you can do this is to carry more weight. Kettlebells or dumbbells are typically used here, but you can get creative and hold a pair of grocery bags or backpacks filled with items. Another way you can further challenge these muscles is doing this from a step or another elevated surface. This can be an option valuable to a runner as the calf muscles seem to generate most of its force at around 10 to 15 degrees of ankle dorsiflexion, where this motion causes the foot to come toward the body, to 10 degrees of plantar flexion, where this motion causes the foot to go away from the body. By doing this on an elevated surface, this allows you to work the muscle in a more dorsiflex position and work the muscle in a manner more specific to running. Now, another simple way to further challenge yourself with heel raises is through changing the tempo. To increase difficulty through tempo, you can increase the speed of the time it takes for the heel to rise, then decrease the speed of the time it takes for the heels to lower. Now, those are some easy ways to modify the heel raise, but you can also try some different variations of the heel raise to further challenge yourself in different ways. One of my favorite variations of the heel raise is the supported single leg heel raise. Shout out to Chris Johnson for this one. Now, people typically jump towards single leg heel raises. However, this may be an option to try prior to the single leg heel raise, as this involves way less balance demands. This could be a way for you to really work on the strength of the muscles, as you don't really have to think about trying to keep your balance as much. Now, similar to what I mentioned about the standard heel raises, try to make sure to keep the knee straight and maintain control as you lift and lower the heel. However, there are a few more things that you may need to pay attention to. You need to watch the way the body moves as the heel raises. A common compensation is for the body to move forward and lean into the foot on the elevated surface. This is why I typically tell people to stay vertical and pretend like you're trying to hit your head on the ceiling. Now, another tip I commonly give is that you can use a small ball under the foot as shown to prevent you from putting too much weight on the support leg and make sure it's mostly used for balance. Now, the next variation of heel raises you can progress toward is the single leg heel raise. Compared to the standard heel raise, this requires increased strength and balance demands. This may be important considering that you're pretty much on one leg at a time as you run. Now, one last thing I wanted to add in this video is a simple plyometric drill, which are pogo jumps. The reason why is because running involves constant energy storage and release. This is a simple way to work on that. Now, the difference between pogo jumps and regular jumping is that you are actually trying to keep your knee straight and stiff. This difference focuses activity less on the knee and more at the ankle. This ends up biasing more of the Achilles tendon, which is an important structure that helps you generate so much force as you run. When doing these, I typically incorporate a metronome to control the quality of the movement. For example, if I want to increase explosiveness, I typically slow down the beats per minute, as this will require you to have to stay in the air longer, aka jump higher. You can also switch to different variations such as hops, which I talked more about in a previous video. If you want to further know more about my thoughts on plyometrics, you can check out that video as well. Now, I do want to warn some caution when doing these, as doing too many of them may not be worth it. For example, depending on which research articles you read, mechanical stimulus to build structures like bone or tendon may actually plateau around 30 to 40 jumps or hops. Doing more than that may not stimulate much more gains than that. Of course, I will just say that this is also largely dependent on the relative intensity to the specific individual. Being in a rehab setting where I help athletes work through and manage injuries, I'd rather try to get at least the minimal effective dose to build resilience in those areas, rather than try to find that maximum benefit, as you may be putting yourself at a higher risk of injury. In other words, the juice may not be worth the squeeze. Though, I will say that context is important, and it may be beneficial to consult or work with someone to layer in plyometrics properly to reach your goals. And those are some exercises to try and why they can be beneficial to help you run faster. I know this video is way longer than usual, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one as I shared more of my insight here. I'd love to hear your feedback, as well as any questions you may have. Feel free to give suggestions for other topics you'd like me to discuss. Also, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. If you already did, I am very grateful. And as always, thank you for watching.